So I wrote here, Lesson 6, Solving Systems by Substitution. Using a graphing to solve a system is an excellent tool visually. I do like the graphing because you can clearly say, they cross there. It's obvious. Problems. First of all, it's a lot of work. And what if I don't have graph paper, Ty? Well, then what? And if they cross in mid-air, I'm stuck. If they don't cross on a lattice point, on a grid line, I'm stuck. So there are two other methods to solve linear systems. And the first is using something called substitution. How do we do substitution? I'm going to read you the 4 steps. It's going to look really confusing, but when we do a couple of examples, you'll go, oh, that's actually pretty nice. And in fact, you're going to find most of the arithmetic that we'll be doing, grade 8, but because it's going to take about 8 lines of work, there's lots of room to make sloppy mistakes. So be a little paranoid, careful, extra careful when you're doing the work. How do you solve a system by substitution? Step 1 says, choose the simpler equation and express one variable in terms of the other. Say what? Relax. Step 2 says, substitute the expression from step 1 into the other equation. Step 3 says, solve the single variable equation. And step 4 says, substitute the solution from step 3 into the... Huh? Turn the page. Example 1 says, consider this linear system. Now, first of all, look at the 2 last words, linear and system. Are each of those lines? Are each of those equations lines? And how do I know? Okay, no exponents, so they are lines, and it's a system, 2 equations, 2 unknowns. Okay, that tells me a lot. Do you notice that one of the either x's or one of the y's has an invisible 1 as a coefficient? Do you see it? See it? What we're going to do is we're going to pick that equation and we're going to rewrite it to get that letter by itself. So you see there's 4 different letters, 2 x's and 2 y's. One of them will be clearly easiest to get by itself. Which letter, which equation, the first one or the second one, first of all? Second one, and which letter? Remember all that rewriting things into slope-intercept form, and I said I was totally good if you could do it in your head? I'm totally good if you can do it in your head. Can you rewrite this equation to get the x by itself? X equals what? Brendan, you're right. Say it loudly, please. The only difference I'm going to do, Brendan, is I'm going to write it as 2 minus 2y, which is the same as negative 2y plus 2. Brendan, not to make fun of you, but for a reason, can you read me that new equation again, out loud? Say it one more time. Stop. Instead of equals, here's what I want you to say, can be replaced with. So read it again. In the first equation, wherever I see an x, what can I write instead? We're going to substitute, that's why this is called the substitution method, into the first equation with this longer x. Now, I don't want to write all that in English. That's too much work. And you've noticed, hopefully this year, what I like to try and do, Ty, is find something that's clear, organized, but not much writing. Draw a little arrow pointing to that. I'll clue in that what you're saying is I'm going to substitute equation 2 into equation 1. But whenever I see an x, Brendan, what am I going to write instead of an x? What am I going to write instead of an x? 2 minus 2y. In other words, let's rewrite equation number 1. The first thing I see is a 3. The next thing I see is an x, but I'm not going to write an x. What am I going to write instead? Except what will I have to do? Brackets. Good. You guys even picked up on that. 2 minus 2y. Then there's a plus, a 4, a y, an equals, and a minus 4. By the way, I think on the previous page I called that step 2, but I know I'm going to need lots of room, so I don't want to waste space. So you can, anyways, there's step 2. How many different letters appear in this new blue equation? How many do you see? Just 1. Hey, that's Math 9. Felt sad. Fractions? No? Okay, we check though, because that's the order. Feltzad tells us the order we're going to do stuff in. What did the E stand for? Didn't stand for exponent. Got to be careful. Oh, expand. If I could have found something with a B for brackets, I would have, but anyways, E for expand. So, we do this. We get 6 minus 6y plus 4y equals -4. And Brendan, the only reason I wrote it in this order is I just find it easier to move stuff around that way. Yours is perfectly acceptable too. Okay, Feltzad, we did the F fractions. We checked. We've done the E expand. What did the LT stand for? Oh, like terms. Are there some like terms that we can gather? Oh, okay. So this is going to be 6. And then I have a -6y plus a 4y. Equals -4. By the way, you'll notice I'm keeping my equal signs in line. Ask my block Cs who did this lesson last day. The room to make sloppy mistakes is huge, They were all getting frustrated because, how come I'm not getting the right answer? And it was almost always the last line or the second last line. They'd done a mistake. How can you prevent that? First thing, trust me, keep your equal signs in line. Drop your equal signs down. Don't try and scrunch up and write small. Now what? Oh, yeah, because SA, subtract and add. Subtract or add what? What's in front of the 6? It's invisible. Positive. So I'm going to go -6, -6. And I'll get the -2y drops down equals -4 plus -6, or -4 take away 6. -10. Now what? Divide by what? By -2. Can you tell me the answer now in your head already? Okay. Advice, a little more advice. You'll notice it took about 5 lines to get here. Trust me, you'll appreciate this later. You just found one of the variables, put a box around it so it stands out. Otherwise, when you go back later, you won't be able to find it. Brendan, going to continue to pick on you. Brendan, what's y? I say it again. What? You're right. What's y? 5. Wherever I see a y, what number can I put in its place? What's x? Hey, do I have an equation somewhere that has the x by itself already? Yeah? Brendan, can you read to me the equation that has the x by itself already? The one at the top there. But what can I replace the y with? So you ready? What can I put right there? 2 times 5 in your head. 2 take away 10. -8. What's x? As I said to you, this method, it takes a fair bit of work to get the first letter, but you can usually get the second letter in your head. Now, in our notes, Brendan, so that you know we will show this substitution step. I have no problem, though, Logan, when you're doing the homework, if you can find the second variable by just plugging the first one into the equation and do it in your head and go straight to writing what the answer is, great. But for now, I'm going to do this. And we went x equals 2 minus 2 times 5. And Brendan told us that x equals 2 take away 10. X equals -8. Karin, what's x? What's y? Where do these two graphs cross? What, comma, what? -8, comma 5, and I don't need no stinking graph paper to tell me that. Oh, and Curtis, this would also work if they were decimals. I would be able to find them still. As opposed to just, if they were decimals, I'd have to eyeball it with graph paper. Final answer? SOL stands for solution. -8, comma 5. We'll write it as an ordered pair in brackets. You'll find as you practice this, you can get a little bit quicker. But again, don't get too sloppy. Easy to make lots of mistakes. Okay? That's what step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 4 are. You guys all stay on this page. I'm going to go back and walk you through the steps again. You all stay on this page. Step 1 was choose the simpler equation and express one variable in terms of the other. Did we do that? Check. Step 2 was substitute that expression into the other equation. We did that. Step 3 was solve that single variable equation. We did that. Step 4, once you get that new answer, go back to your original equation and plug your new answer to find your other answer. Let's try another one. Example 2. Turn the page. Now I'm giving you less room. Which equation is going to be easier to get a letter by itself in? Equation 1 or equation 2? Equation 2, which letter? Because I asked you to. Which letter? Why? Because I asked you. I'll never get tired of that joke. And I get to use it again. Anyway, okay. Jake, in your head, Jacob, can you please get the y by itself? Rearrange that equation. Can you tell me what this equation really is? Y equals what?
Y equals 5 minus 4x.
Yep. And what I think to myself is not just y equals 5 minus 4x, but I think to myself, whenever I see a y, what can I write instead? 5 minus 4x. And I'm going to plug that into that guy. So it doesn't always have to be the x that you get by itself. You can get the y by itself, too, whichever is easiest. Hey, whichever one has a 1 as a coefficient. So you ready, Jacob? Read to me. I'm going to write a 2, yes? An x, a minus, a 4. But now what am I going to write? You forgot one important thing. Bracket. 5 minus 4x, close bracket, equals 7. Now what? Hey, how many letters do I have in this equation now? 1. It's grade 9. I mean, not easy grade 9, but I would argue this is a C plus B level question from Math 9 equation solving. Felt sad. Any fractions to clear? No, if there were, I would. Expand. I'll get 2x minus 20, careful, plus 16x equals 7. LT, like terms. 18x minus 20 equals 7? Yes? Now what? Plus 20? Can you do that in your head? I'll be okay if you add or subtract on this second last step if you do it in your head and you go straight to writing 18x equals 27. Now what? Divide by. X is going to be 27 over 18. That reduces to a fairly nice fraction. Yeah, it's a fraction, but it's not an ugly one. What goes into 27 and 18 evenly? What's 27 over 18 in lowest terms? So 3 over 2. We just found an x. Let's put a box around it. Mac, what's x? What's x? Let's go back to that first equation that Jacob created for us, but wherever we see an x, what will we write instead? You know what? An arrow there is going to be kind of, oh, I know what I can do. Doink, there. I'm going to get this. Y equals 5 minus 4 bracket 3 over 2. By the way, little advice. Do you notice how I wrote this fraction? What's on the bottom? What's underneath the 5? It's invisible, but what's underneath there as a fraction? A 1. What's underneath the 4? I decided that the top row was going to be that. I made sure that I wrote the 3 lined up with the top and the 2 lined up with the invisible ones. It makes things clearer for me. Really? Yeah. Because here's what this really says. Ready, Jacob? You're going to take this all the way home. This says 4 times 3 divided by 2. 5 take away 6. Right?
Yeah.
Cole?
Yeah.
What's 4 times 3? That's why, by the way, that's why I wrote it like that, so you can clearly see the 4 goes timesing onto the 3, not onto the 2. And what's the 2 do? Hey, it's on the bottom. It's dividing. Those of you that write your fractions kind of halfway up and halfway down, I would, if there was one thing, I've never taught Math 8. If I ever taught Math 8 when they do the fraction unit, I would beat the half-line fractions out of every one of my students. I'd make all my students write fractions 2 lines. Why? Sarah, so you can clearly see what's on the top and on the bottom. I think that's where a lot of the fraction confusion comes from. Kids aren't sure. And I think I've done that rant with you about how when I type fractions, my Microsoft Word program automatically puts the fractions middle line, which drives me crazy. There should be a top and there should be a bottom. Anyways, Cole, are you with me? 4 times 3, 12, divided by 2, 6. This is 5, take away. That whole thing is a 6. In your head, 5 take away 6?
1.
Really? Jake, you had a question?
I was wondering why you don't have go -4 times 3.
I did. Oh, why didn't I go -4 times 3? Because I've learned over the years when there's fractions, if I'm likely to make a dumb mistake, it's going to be a negative. So what I just said is I'm going to go 4 times 3 divided by 2, and I'll subtract. Or you could have gone -4 times 3 divided by 2 and gotten -6, but then it would have been 5 plus -6. That plus sign isn't so obvious that it's there. It is there. It's invisible, but it's... So I just prefer, if I see a minus sign, I'll treat it as a subtraction and deal with it after. Hey! This answers Rachel's issue earlier. She asked a brilliant question. She said, Mr. Duick, what if they don't cross on a nice grid line? What if they cross in midair? The graphing method wouldn't help me, but I can tell you exactly where these 2 lines cross. What, comma, what? 3/2, which would be really tough to read from a graph, comma. They cross there. Let's try another one. Example 3. Which equation is going to be easier to rewrite here? Equation 1 or equation 2? Oh, by the way, where the substitution method doesn't work well, don't write this down, is if your equation looks like this. Because none of those is easy to get by itself without introducing fractions to the party. I mean, I can get the x by itself, but I'm either dividing by 6 or dividing... Bleh. That's the method that we'll find a way to deal with those ones tomorrow, because those ones cross. They do. That's tomorrow's lesson. You guys all said equation 1, I agree. Which letter do we want to get by itself in equation 1? Because I asked you to. Which letter? How would I get that by itself? The easiest way, what's in front of the y? A negative? I'm going to suggest, look up, look up, look up. All of you look up. Kenzie, you too, look up, look up, look up. I think if you plus that to that side, and now it's a positive y, but at the same time move this 3 to that side by how? Subtracting it. I don't know if, did I lose you? It's going to be y equals 5x minus 3. Did you follow that okay? Yeah? We took a big step. We moved 2 things at once. By the way, have you noticed when you're moving stuff from side to side, Sarah, all that's happening is the sign is changing? Yes? Sarah, can you read that equation to me? Which means in equation number 2, wherever I see a y, what will I write instead, Sarah? Absolutely. Absolutely. Instead of a y, I'm going to write a 5x minus 3. Let us begin. Sarah, I'm going to write a 3x. I'm going to write a minus. I'm going to write a 4. But I'm not going to write a y. What am I going to write instead? Bracket 5x minus 3 equals a negative 5. And Jordan, just like that, lo and behold, alakazam, I've gone from 2 variables to 1. Now, oh, hey, you know what? Try this one on your own. I'll do it quietly up here. Let's see if we end up in the same place. Yeah. Oh. Am I right? I don't know. I might be wrong. Let me double check now. Oh, that scares me. When I got that 17 at first, I was like, oh, this isn't going to work out evenly. And then oh, no, it's going to be another 17 on the other side. Oh, no fractions. Yay. Psst. Is that right? Anywhere that I zigged or anything that you want me to explain? I did some steps in my head. This is the minimum amount of work I would ever show. This is, you know what, Katie, this is what I would do in my homework. On a test or a quiz, I do just like the first example where I show every single step because I don't want to make mistakes, right? Right? 5 times 1 minus 3. It was the 1 times table. It was too easy, and that was what was throwing you off. Yeah? Is this faster than graphing? I think it can be. It is for me. And you don't have to have graph paper. 1, 2. Oh, by the way, I could also check my answer. Because what this is really saying is, if I plug a 1 in for the x and a 2 in for the y, each of these equations should be true. So this is a test you don't hand in early. Instead, so I've just finished this question. I finished my test. I'm checking my answers. Watch. On my calculator, I go 5 times 1 minus 2. That's the left-hand side of this equation. What should it work out to if this actually works? When I press enter, it should say 3. Did it? Works in the first equation. Let's check the second one. 3 times 1 minus 4 times 2. What should that work out to? Does it? This is a test where you know you're right or wrong. Or you can. You finish the test, go back and start plugging in your answers. They have to work. Just be careful on your calculator. Oh, have I gone on a rant about the importance of having a half-decent calculator? I have? Okay. Oh, and some of your calculators, if you have a half-decent one, actually have a built-in systems of equations solver. I will show you how to use it before the test. After I've made you learn how to do it manually both ways, I'll show you how you can use your calculator to check your answer. But I learned if I show kids how to do it before they learn how to do it by hand, they never learn how to do it by hand and they flunk the test. Example 4. Kirkland, can you read to me the instructions for example 4? Good, shut up and do it. I'll do it up here. But this time, I'm going to be mean. I'm going to freeze the screen so you can't copy from me. Mr. Dewick, this is so much fun. I'd almost like pay to do this. This is not just equation solving. It's twice the equation solving. 2 at a time. Wow. Last one. The toughest one. Now, I gotta be honest, I would not use substitution for this unless they made me. So if the question said, Ty, solve using the substitution method, oh geez, why wouldn't I use substitution for this? Does any one of those variables have a 1 or a -1 as a coefficient? No. I would use tomorrow's lesson, the elimination method. That's a way where you can make an entire variable vanish. It's a little more work, but it works for any type of equations. Did I say I wouldn't use substitution for this? Is that what I said? Substitution for this unless they made me. And I'd complain about it the entire time. I'd say, wait a minute, I got a better, cleaner method that's going to avoid the yuckiness of fractions. Is there one more? Ah! Relax. 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 What don't you like about these two questions, about these two equations? Clear them. Use the F trick from Felt-Sad. How do we clear fractions? Look at the first equation. What would a common denominator of the first equation be? So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to go times by 2, times by 2, times by 2. I'm going to get an entirely new set of equations. Oh, but here's the nice thing, Mickey. When I go 2 times x divided by 2, it turns out both of those will just end up canceling. And I'll have just a plain old x. A plus sign, a 2y, and equals, Jordan, what? That's a much nicer equation. Oh, let's get rid of the fractions in the second equation as well. How could I get rid of the fractions in the second equation? Times by 3, times by 3, times by 3. And remember, you have to multiply everything by 3, even if there's not a fraction underneath it. You still got to multiply it by 3. That's why I had to multiply that y by 2 in the previous one. And here, I think it's going to end up being gonzo, gonzo, and gonzo. I think I'm going to end up with x minus y equals negative what? 1. Does that work for the substitution method? Yeah. Yep. How? Do you want to get an x or a y by itself, and do you want to use equation 1 or equation 2? Equation 2, what letter do you want to get by itself? X. Okay. So it's been decided. There's several different options, but let's all be consistent. So let's rewrite this as x equals y minus 1 or negative 1 plus y, same thing. That has less negatives, which is why I wrote it that way. You really hate negatives that much? Yeah, don't even think about it, but yeah. And we're going to put it into there. So my new equation is going to be y minus 1 plus 2y equals 5. And I don't need to worry about brackets because there was a single solitary x up there, so no coefficient, so no need for brackets. Like terms, 3y minus 1 stop. Write this down, then put your pencils down. I would never, Sarah, do this on a test, but ready? How would you get the y by itself? What would you do? Plus 1, then divide by? Can you tell me the answer? If you can get to the 2 in your homework from this line in your head, I'm good. Would I do it that way on a test or a quiz? No. But I have no problem if you start finding this type of equation, Ty, boring and redundant and easy. I think that's a good thing. Now, if you're constantly getting it wrong, then I'm also assuming you're a mature academic student enough to say, I guess I better show a bit more work. But Carl is correct. I think y is 2. Did I just find what y is? Well, I'm going to put a box around it because I do so much work I might lose it later on. Oh, now let's go pick up our pencils and go scooching over here. Showing no work. Can you tell me what x is? Logan. That's why I also wrote it this way, because it's 2 minus 1, way easier than having the negative stuff. Let's put a box around that, Logan, so it stands. Oh, let's write our point. What, comma, what? 1, comma 2. Those two typewritten equations, which would be very difficult to graph, a lot of work to graph, I'm telling you, they cross at 1, comma 2. They do. You know what else? You know what else systems are nice for? They help make something that kids loathe much easier. They help make word problems easier. But you know what? I'm going to start next class by solving a word problem with a substitution system. I want to give you lots of time to work on the homework.